Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Kurt on Cougs. I'm doing a review of this week. Week of ups and downs for the Cougars. Unfortunately, I would probably say more downs than ups. But yeah, we'll dive right into it. We're gonna start off with the team that ended their game the most recently, BYU women's basketball, who were playing today against the Baylor Bears. Earlier this week, they won in a really good game against UCF. Really solid performance, played really well down the stretch to hold off the Knights and give them their third win in conference play, which, in my opinion, very important. Got to separate yourselves from the bottom of the standings. And so, yeah, great win there. And then, like I said earlier today, losing against Baylor. This is a game where the Cougars actually outshot the Bears on their home court. And ultimately, though, more turnovers, less rebounds, and the Cougars end up losing this one by 12. Still, though, Baylor, one of the top teams in the conference. I'm not too overly concerned after this loss. Yeah. Also, big performances from Delaney Gibb and Emma Calvert. And so, yeah, overall, though, going 1-1 this week, not too bad. And yeah. So just like moving forward, I think that, it's just tightening things up. Overall, very solid week. Baylor is a team I was expecting to lose against, and then won against UCF, which is big. So yeah, overall, solid week for BYU women's basketball. You would have loved to get that Baylor one. But in my opinion, I think this team still has a big win in them. Once again, they've hung with a lot of the top teams in the conference. So just making those plays down the stretch, I still think they can get a big win. So hoping for that next week. And now jumping over to men's basketball, really tough week for the Cougars there. I've been just a down week. Played two of their worst stretches of playing time in the season. Two about 6 to 7 minutes stretches of just not being able to hit a shot in both games. And that, honestly, one of the top factors that doomed them in both of these. Starting off with that Arizona game, that's a game that BYU was in for the most part. Going into halftime, going into the second half, that was a game they were very competitive in. But ultimately, at the end of the day, just went cold from the field. Arizona builds a big lead. Cougars end up losing by 11 in the end. So tough loss there. But once again, though, you're playing one of the top teams in the conference, so not a loss that's going to kill you on Selection Sunday. Still tough nonetheless. And then earlier today, very similar story. The Cougars were hanging with Cincinnati. They seemed to make the adjustments needed during the latter part of the first half to make things very, very manageable. They were in this game for a while and then just started missing a lot of shots, lots of sloppy turnovers, got destroyed in rebounding. Not sure exactly if I'm remembering this right, but I believe they got out-rebounded by about 15, which just really weird for this team to do. So yeah, and once again, credit to Cincinnati. They had a fantastic game, shooting almost 60% from the field. When teams are doing that against you, especially Cincinnati, a team that typically isn't very good offensively, and especially at shooting the three, when they're doing that, they're tough to beat. But at the same time, just not a good performance for the Cougars. And so, yeah, so now dropping to 0-2 on the week. At this point, I expected them to be right on the line of the bubble, and yeah, so it's tough. But I think that next week, if you can just win both of those games, you should be right back in a good position. Just got to beat West Virginia and Kansas State. So yeah, two very important games there. Earlier today, also in the game, great performances by Richie Saunders, Igor Demon. Also, some good play from some players coming off the bench like Boscovich, Stewart. They came in and made a real nice contribution for the Cougars. Like, gave them a little bit of a spark, a little bit of hope. So yeah, ultimately though, I feel like just tough week today. One of their worst performances of the season. But hey, still think this team has a lot of talent. Still think they can go to the tournament. I feel like there's a lot of overreactions that could possibly come with this. This isn't a tournament team anymore. I personally believe that's false. I think this team still very much has the potential, has a path to make it. So yeah, and then as well, I know there was a lot of critiques of the defense. While the defense was not perfect in this game, and there were definitely some open shots allowed, at the same time, a lot of the open shots BYU was allowing was the type of shots they were wanting Cincinnati to take. Since Cincinnati is a poor three-point shooting team, allowing deep threes to this team seemed like it might be a good strategy in this game. Ultimately, though, Cincinnati shoots really well. And that's the thing. Sometimes, even when you put in a, per se, B grade performance on defense, the other team just puts in an A. And so, yeah, ultimately, tough losses for the Cougs. But I think they're going to bounce back next week. With those games on the road at West Virginia, and then at home at Kansas State. That Kansas State game starting to look a little tougher as the Wildcats beat the number 16 Kansas Jayhawks earlier today. That game might be tougher than we thought. Moving on to BYU men's volleyball. They bounced back in a big way this week. A really good week for them. They get back-to-back sweeps over number 15 UC Santa Barbara. In my opinion, two very important matches. You gotta get off that losing streak they had, and they did that successfully. So I think that should keep them pretty solidified. I believe currently they're ranked around like number 6 in the country. So feeling pretty good about their chances. BYU women's softball has also started their season. They are 2-0 at this point, unless there was a doubleheader today. I don't know. I'm pretty sure, 2-0 on the season. So good start for them. It's pretty fun. Softball, baseball, track seasons all around the corner. Really excited to see how those go. Also, a little note from up here in Rexburg. Earlier today, we had a game between a BYUI team composed of players that play in the competitive intramurals up here, playing against a team from BYU, and that was the scout team that the BYU women's basketball team plays against. Great game. Ultimately, BYUI wins that one by, I'm not totally sure if I remember the score correctly, but something along the lines of 97-78. Just awesome game there. Great job by BYUI in that one. Lots of players getting a lot of good points. Very spread effort. I believe 10 guys scoring in double figures. So, really good. And something I would love to see is a day when eventually I can be cheering for both BYU and BYUI in intercollegiate sports. BYUI hasn't had those in over 20 years since the school switched from Rick's College. So I would love to see that come back at some point. I think that'd be really fun. Just crossing fingers. And that's all I got for tonight. Go Cougs.